Dear parents, families, and community, welcome to another family engagement broadcast from HES Academies. Welcome, Omnia Abdullah from LAHC with us in the virtual studio. Today's topic will be about teen mental health and suicide prevention. Before we get to this presentation, I wanted to share with you that we have started our traditional family engagement breakfasts and professional developments in all the HES academies. So please check our social media and your emails, the school calendars for the next upcoming family engagement breakfast. During that time, you get to see other parents, you get to meet the administrators in the school. You'll hear some presentations, you will see some community tabling, and you will be able to also engage other parents and administrators about the school and enjoy a beautiful breakfast in one of those mornings in the academies. Here is a short video from a family engagement breakfast that happened yesterday at SIA George, or actually the day before yesterday, and it was about restorative practices. So parents were seated in a semicircle, just as it is the tradition in restorative practices, and it was a beautiful, engaging professional development and breakfast. Here's the video. Do you like the video, Omnia?
I love it.
We will be for sure hosting LAHC in one of those breakfasts to share with our community some of your beautiful presentations and information. Before I introduce Omnia, I also want to remind all our parents that we have link trees. These link trees basically have all the links that you will need handy for you. So I recommend for you to save these link trees. This is, for example, the link tree here displayed on the screen for Universal Academy. It's linktree, linktr.ee, then / and then usually the tag of the school. So for Universal Academy, it's UA Detroit. For Universal Learning Academy, it's ULA Blue Jays. For Noor International Academy, it's Noor Int Academy. For Star International Academy Dearborn Heights, it's SIADH. And for Star Canton, it's SIA Canton. This is the one, this one for HES Academies has the link trees for all the link trees. So this is the mother tree of all these link trees. If you go to it, it will take you to your specific school's link tree. I would say save this because it has a school phone number, the email, all the social media, all the links to reset your Power School, to access Class Dojo, to sign up for Remind, to sign up for the email, the links for the uniform store, etc. It will all be one click away from you, and we can always update it. The link won't change, but we will add some more useful links for you on it. So, without further ado, as you know, Omnia is the health program coordinator at LAHC, Leaders Advancing and Helping Communities. She's a substance abuse prevention specialist, and she holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in biology from Oakland University and a Master's of Science in Health Science from a public health concentration from Touro University worldwide. After exploring different aspects of healthcare and education, Omnia landed this position, allowing her to influence the health of the community through prevention. Once a refugee, Omnia has taken her past experiences on bilingual skills and applied them, understanding and improving the lives of people in the diverse local community. She is a familiar face in many high school classrooms as she facilitates the life skills program and also familiar with parents through different parenting engagement sessions. Welcome, Omnia, again, and we will hear her presentation both in English and Arabic. Please leave your comments and questions. She will get to them by the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, and I am so happy to be here. So let's dive right in. Let's talk about teen mental health. Let's talk about what can, affect their mental health and what can actually bring suicidal thoughts. How can we prevent it? How can we open this conversation? And like Wissam said, this will be in both Arabic and English. خلينا اليوم نحكي عن الصحة النفسية خصوصا عند المراهقين والشباب. كمان خلينا نحكي عن كيف ممكن نحميهم من الانتحار أو أفكار الانتحار، وكمان كيف ممكن نحمي صحتهم النفسية بشكل عام. So to kind of get started, I just kind of want to break down a few terms and kind of go from there. So really the first thing we want to talk about today is isolation, alienation, being kind of pulled away from society and just kind of walking away from social settings. So isolation is kind of the kind of a situation that someone can put themselves in where they really pull themselves from any contact of other people. So they're really just isolating themselves, closing themselves in. This is an important term to kind of know here when we're talking about mental health and suicide, because this has a huge impact on people's mental health. Alienation is another term I want to discuss today, and it's the state or experience of being isolated from a specific group or activity. Something that someone used to do before but isn't doing anymore. They're kind of being alienated. And then youth alienation is specific to youth. So think about any activities that youth around you do, kind of being pushed out of this group, whether it's a friend group and if it's a team or anything like that, just kind of being pushed from that societal group. This could be youth alienation. And all of these things can have a detrimental impact on someone's mental health, especially if we're talking about youth. خلينا نبدأ بتعريف كم كلمة هي ممكن تكون كتير مهمة وإلها دخل بالصحة العقلية خصوصا عند الشباب. أول وحدة منهم هي العزلة. لما نحن عم نحكي عن العزلة نحن عم نحكي عن الشخص اللي ما بيتواصل مع الناس الموجودة حواليه، بيسكر ناسه عن الناس أو بيبتعد عن الناس الموجودين حواليه. الاغتراب هي حالة من حالات العزلة، بس تكون عزلة عن مجموعة مخصصة أو نشاط مخصص موجود بالمجتمع. واغتراب الشباب هو مخصص للشباب، هو بيكون حالة عزلة بتكون لما الشخص بيبعد حاله عن نشاط معين أو جروب معين من الناس، وهالشي نحن بنسميه اغتراب الشباب. وكل الأشياء الثلاثة ممكن يكون لهم تأثير كتير كبير على الصحة النفسية خصوصا عند الشباب، ومع الوقت ممكن تخليهم أو تدفعهم لأفكار للانتحار أو حتى إذا يجربوا يعملوا هيك شيء. So how does this isolation or alienation lead to depression? So why am I bringing up those terms? So in an ongoing sense, someone being, isolated for a long time, being really away from people if they're having the negative thoughts, not being surrounded by people, not talking to people is really just going to dive them a little bit more deeper into those negative thoughts about themselves, about their lives, about, everything around them. And with time, this could lead to depression. So it's going to increase their feeling of loneliness, their feeling of separation from everyone around them, feeling of not fitting in or not relating to people. All of these different feelings are going to grow, and that's really what's going to cause someone to go from being isolated to feeling depressed. And then the isolation could also lead to a lot of other things like a decline in physical health, cognitive decline. Again, they're really not engaging their brain. We can see that happening, onset of Alzheimer's disease or dementia for those who are older, and then even hallucination. If someone is really, really separating themselves from the society around them, all of these things can happen, again, with a long time of being separated from social interactions. So كيف هالعزلة خصوصا عزلة الشباب ممكن تؤدي للاكتئاب؟ إذا الواحد عم يعزل حاله خصوصا الشباب هن راح يكثروا من شعور العزلة، التباعد عن الناس، وكمان راح يحسوا إنه هن ما بيعرفوا كيف يتعاملوا مع الناس اللي حواليهم أو حتى بالناس اللي موجودين بعمرهم، لأنه صار لهم مدة كبيرة ما عم بيتعاملوا مع الناس الموجودين حواليهم. مع الوقت هالأفكار السلبية رح تكتر ورح تسبب بالاكتئاب أو أحاسيس الاكتئاب. كمان هن رح يحسوا إنه هن وحيدين، وإحساس الحزن والاكتئاب رح يصعد كتير. العزلة كمان ممكن تسبب لأمراض أو أشياء ثانية مثل تدهور الصحة الذهنية والجسدية. كمان ممكن نشوف بداية أمراض مثل الزهايمر أو حتى الخرف، وكمان ممكن نشوف حالات هلوسة خصوصا عند الناس اللي مبتعدين من المجتمع لمدة كتيرة من الوقت. So what is depression? I talked about isolation, talked about how it could cause depression, but what am I really talking about? Depression is actually a mental health disorder that is characterized by persistent depressed mood or loss of interest in daily activities, and it can actually cause a huge impact on someone's life. So they're usually feeling a constant, hopeless, and kind of lonely feeling. This could also affect a person's ability to work, sleep, eat, or even enjoy anything that they used to enjoy before. So a person that is really actually diagnosed with depression, they're kind of feeling those symptoms for a period of at least 2 weeks in a row. And that's really how professionals come to the diagnosis of depression. A lot of us, say we have depression, but it might be a few days that we're feeling off, we're feeling lonely, we're feeling sad. But really, if we're talking about an actual medical diagnosis, this is 2 weeks or more of feeling the same way, not wanting to get out of bed, etc. So that is really what I'm talking about when I say depression, and this is not any different for youth or adults. خلينا نحكي عن الاكتئاب وشو هو معنى الاكتئاب. نحن حكينا عن الايسوليشن أو العزلة وكيف يمكن تسبب الاكتئاب. هلا خلينا نحكي عن شو هو الاكتئاب. الاكتئاب هو اضطراب بالصحة العقلية اللي بيتميز باستمرار المزاج المكتئب وفقدان الاهتمام بالأنشطة اليومية، وخصوصا الأنشطة اللي الشخص كان يحبها من قبل أو يستمتع فيها من قبل. هالشعور ممكن يكون شعور باليأس، كمان هالحالة أو هالمشاعر كلياتها ممكن تسبب اضطرابات عند الشخص بالنوم، بالأكل، وحتى بالأنشطة اليومية. كلياتنا بنحس دايما إنه في أيام نحن بنحس إنه عنا اكتئاب، بس إذا الشخص فعلا عنده هالاضطراب بالصحة العقلية بيكون عنده هالأحاسيس أو هو ما عم يقدر يقوم من التخت أو يعمل أي شيء لمدة أسبوعين أو أكتر، وبهالوقت المختصين ممكن يقولوا إنه هالشخص عم بيعاني من الاكتئاب. So what are some causes and risk factors for depression? So really, let's kind of dive into what could cause it so we can know how to try to prevent it or, really catch it early on. So some causes could be brain chemistry. Some of us are just born with specific chemistry that can kind of push us in that direction more than other people. Hormones could lead us there. This could also be traits. Some families are known to have this in their families. We can get it in our traits. Early childhood traumas could cause something like depression. And then also learned patterns of negative thinking. So If someone grows up always knowing how to think in a negative way and not really knowing how to change that, they can be more prone to things like depression. Other risk factors or things that can also push people in that direction could be negative self-esteem, extra weight, bullying, academic problems, even problems at home could really be a risk factor for someone developing depression, being the victim or witnessing violence, whether it's inside the home or outside. Having other mental conditions could also be a risk factor here. Ongoing or chronic pains or any physical illnesses can also lead people into depression, having low self-esteem, like I mentioned, and then abusing substances for sure. So using anything that could cause addiction or any substance like that could also push people in the direction of depression. So خلينا نحكي عن أسباب وعوامل مختلفة ممكن تسبب بالاكتئاب. من هالأسباب هي التركيبة البيولوجية اللي عنا إياها كلياتنا. So نحن ما ممكن نعمل شيء إذا نحن عنا من البداية نحن ولانين عنا هالتركيبة، بس ممكن نساعد حالنا بطرق مختلفة. هرمونات ممكن يكون لها تأثير كتير كبير على صحتنا النفسية وخصوصا الاكتئاب. الصدمة اللي ممكن تصير بالطفولة عند الأشخاص ممكن تسبب لهم حالة اكتئاب. ونمط التفكير السلبي إذا دايما الشخص بيفكر بطريقة سلبية وما بيعرف كيف يفكر بطريقة إيجابية أو ما يحاول يحل هالشيء، ممكن يكون له نسبة أكبر ليصير عنده حالة اكتئاب. عوامل ممكن تصير بالمجتمع وبتصير بحياتنا هي الثقة بالنفس السلبية أو حتى الواطي ممكن تسبب بمشاكل كتيرة، ومنهم هي ممكن تخلي الشخص يوعى بالاكتئاب، مشاكل بالمدرسة، مشاكل بالبيت، يكون واحد ضحية أي شيء عنف أو تعدي، أو حتى إذا شافوا هالشي قدامهم هالشي ممكن يخلي الشخص يصير عنده حالة اكتئاب. وجود حالات تانية اضطرابات بالعقل ممكن تسبب كمان بحالات الاكتئاب، وإساءة استخدام المواد المدمنة ممكن كمان تسبب بالاكتئاب. So what are the symptoms? What can we look for if we're kind of thinking, okay, my son or daughter are not acting normal. I'm worried that they're feeling depressed. Let's catch the signs early on. So I'm going to talk about a few different signs. The first of them is emotional changes. And disclaimer, I always like to say this. I know that teens can be very, very moody. So a lot of these emotional changes that can be signs and symptoms to look for could also be just them being, going through change, being teenagers, being very moody. But it's very important to kind of recognize when something isn't normal, and really just try to figure out what's going on beyond that. And again, if something is taking a long time, it's 2 weeks, a month, and their mood hasn't really changed, then you really have to step in. So some of those emotional changes could be feeling of sadness, it could be even crying spells that are not normal for your child. This could be a sign or a symptom to kind of look for. Feeling frustrated, angry over very small things that are not important. And again, if this is not normal for your child, this could be a sign. Feeling hopeless or empty, loss of interest in pleasurable activities or things that they used to enjoy before. This could be a big sign. Low self-esteem, again, especially if this is not normal for them. Feeling worthless or guilty. Fixated on, failures that they've had in the past. Blaming themselves for things. This could also be a sign. Extreme sensitivity, especially to rejection or failure, could also be a sign. Trouble thinking, concentrating, making decisions. All of these are signs. Ongoing senses that life or the future is not good or not right or anything like that could also be a huge sign. And then if they kind of bring up the conversations or the thoughts of death and dying and suicide, then that is definitely a huge sign to look out for. So هلا بدي أحكي عن أعراض الاكتئاب خصوصا عند الشباب. So أول شي رح أحكي عن التغيرات العاطفية اللي ممكن تصير عندهم. هلا أنا بعرف إنه الشباب دايما بيكونوا مودي ومزاجيين وما بينحزروا، بس إذا عم تلاحظوا أي نوع من هالتغيرات هو شيء منه طبيعي لأولادكم أو عم يستمر لمدة طويلة، حاولوا تعرفوا شو عم بيصير مشان تأكدوا إن هي منا أعراض اكتئاب. من هالتغيرات هي مشاعر كثيرة بالحزن، حتى ممكن تكون نوبات بكاء أو صريخ بدون سبب، هي ممكن تكون علامة. الإحباط أو المشاعر بالغضب الزايدة أو خاصة إذا بتكون على مشاكل ممكن تكون كتير صغيرة. الشعور باليأس ممكن يكون علامة كبيرة ننتبه لها. المزاج العصبي كمان ممكن يكون علامة، خصوصا إذا هالشي منه طبيعي لأولادنا. فقدان الاهتمام بالأنشطة اللي هن كانوا يحبوها من قبل، فقدان الاهتمام برفقاتهم بالعائلة أو أي شي هن كانوا بيحبوه. الثقة بالنفس الواطية أو السلبية ممكن تكون علامة. مشاعر عدم القيمة أو بيحسوا إنه هن ما إلهم قيمة أو عم بيحسوا بالذنب لأشياء كتيرة، هي ممكن كمان تكون أعراض لننتبه لها. التركيز على حالات الفشل الماضية بحياتهم كمان ممكن تكون علامة. ممكن يكونوا كتير حساسين أكتر من قبل. كمان ممكن يكون عندهم صعوبة بالتفكير أو حتى التركيز. وكمان بالشعور إذا هن دايما عم بيقولوا عم يفتحوا مواضيع على مستقبل منه منيح أو مستقبل، لما بيحكوا عن المستقبل بيكون عندهم أفكار سلبية، هاي ممكن تكون كمان علامة. وكمان أكيد إذا بيحكوا عن الموت أو الانتحار أو أي شيء مثل هذا علامة كتير كبيرة لازم ننتبه لها. Behavioral changes that we can kind of notice, again, just keep in mind that these are teens and their behaviors are changing, but if something is very off, not normal, or just taking a long time for them to kind of recover from or come back to normal, then that is definitely a sign. Frequent complaints, unexplained body pains, aches, and things like that could be a sign. Poor school performance, especially if that's not normal for them, that could be a huge sign. Loss of interest in how they look, their hygiene, anger outbursts, kind of engaging in risky behaviors or doing things that they usually don't do could be a huge sign. Self-harm, it could be anything like cutting, burning, or even getting a lot of body piercings and tattoos. And if this is not normal for your child, this could also be a sign. Making a plan or an attempt for suicide is definitely a huge one as well. If you feel like they're always tired, don't have a lot of energy, that is a sign. Insomnia, which is not sleeping much or sleeping all the time, could be a huge sign. Very sudden changes in appetite, so they either don't eat a lot anymore or they're eating excessively and it kind of just changed very quickly. That could be a sign. Slow thinking, even their body movements could be a little bit slower. That could be a sign. And of course, self-isolation, what we talked about before, pulling themselves from crowds, pulling themselves from activities that they used to enjoy before, is definitely a huge sign to look out for. خلينا كمان نحكي عن السلوك أو التغيير بالسلوك اللي ممكن ننتبه عليه إذا أولادنا بحسوا بالاكتئاب أو عندهم مشكلة. أول وحدة منهم هي الشكاوي من الآلام المختلفة، وإذا بتحسوا إنه ما في سبب لأن يكونوا بألم، هالشي ممكن يكون علامة. ضعف الأداء المدرسي أو حتى ابتعاد عن الأنشطة اللي هن كانوا يحبوها من قبل، هالشي ممكن يكون علامة. نوبات غضب أو سلوك ممكن يكون خطر أكتر من قبل، ممكن يكون علامة لإلكن. وضع خطة للانتحار أو يحاولوا إنه يأذوا حالهم أو ينتحروا هي علامة كتير كبيرة. التعب أو فقدان الطاقة بشكل كتير سريع، خصوصا إذا ما في سبب أو هن ما كانوا عم يعملوا شي يخلوهم يحسوا بالتعب. عدم النوم أو النوم لأوقات كتيرة ممكن يكون علامة. التغيرات بالشهية خصوصا إذا بتصير بطريقة مفاجئة، إذا هن صاروا ياكلوا كتير أو ما ياكلوا، هاي كمان ممكن تكون علامة. أو استخدام أي مواد مدمنة ممكن تكون علامة كتير كبيرة إنه في عندهم مشاكل عقلية أو صحية أو عم بيحسوا بالاكتئاب أو أي شي مثل هيك. كمان ممكن ننتبه للعزلة، خصوصا العزلة من المجتمع أو من رفقاتهم أو من الأنشطة اللي هن كانوا يحبوها من قبل. So, of course, like a lot of different things, depression comes in different ways. One of them is seasonal depression. Maybe this is something that a lot of us adults deal with more than the youth. but definitely something that they can deal with as well, especially if, they used to play sports and then the winter they don't, or they don't spend a lot of time with their friends like they used to before. Something like this could definitely hit them. So this usually happens because of the decreased sunlight. Not seeing a lot of sun could really affect someone's mood. But seasonal depression is something that we might see in the fall and winter, and then their symptoms or their mood really changes once the weather starts to become warmer, and then of course once we start getting more sun. Disruptive mood disorder is another one. This is kind of a mood disorder that we see in children and youth as well. This kind of includes chronic and severe irritability, anger, frequent or extreme temper outbursts. These could also be a type of depression that we can see, especially in youth. This also can kind of come with anxiety disorder. Someone who's really dealing with a lot of anxiety could kind of start to show extreme temper outbursts more than they ever had before. So مثل غير أنواع من الأمراض، الاكتئاب في أكثر من نوع. أول واحد بدي أحكي عنه هو اضطراب العاطفي الموسمي أو الاكتئاب الموسمي. كتير مننا كناس بالغين ممكن نحس بهالنوع من الاكتئاب أكتر من الشباب. وهالنوع من الاكتئاب هو بيصير بالشتاء أو بالخريف لما نحن ما بنشوف شمس أو ما بيكون عنا طاقة مثل قبل، مثل الصيف والربيع. ومع الوقت بس تغير الفصول نحن بنرجع لحالتنا الطبيعية. الأولاد أو الشباب كمان ممكن يكون عندهم نفس الحالة. والنوع الثاني بدي أحكي عنه كمان هو اضطراب المزاج، اللي ممكن يصير خصوصا عند الناس اللي ممكن يكون عندهم حالات قلق أو مرض القلق. وهنا بيحسوا إنه دايما بيكونوا غضبانين أو ممكن يكون عندهم نوبات غضب شديدة ما مثل غيرهم، وهي actually هي نوع من أنواع الاكتئاب. Other ones that could also fall under depression is bipolar disorder. This is kind of when someone switches moods very quickly. This is kind of how we can categorize it. This is also a type of depression. And then premenstrual depression is also another one. So this is kind of the symptoms that are associated with hormonal changes. A lot of youth do struggle with this more than others, but this is definitely a type of depression as well. So أنواع تانية هي ممكن تكون اضطرابات عاطفية أو اللي نحن بالإنجليزي بنسميه bipolar disorder. هل نوع من الاكتئاب بيصير لما نحن بنشوف الشخص بيتغير من إنه كتير فرحان لكتير زعلان كم ثانية أو كم دقيقة. هاي هو actually هو نوع من أنواع الاكتئاب. والنوع الرابع اللي بدي أحكي عنه هو اللي بيصير بسبب الهرمونات، خصوصا عند الشباب لما هرموناتهم بتتغير ممكن يكون عندهم حالة اكتئاب بسبب هالهرمونات. So depression is huge, and unfortunately it leads to a lot of suicide in our country. So each day in our nation there are an average of over 3,000 attempts by young people who are aged from 9 to 12 years old. So about 3,000 people of that age each day attempt to commit suicide. That's a huge number. Another huge number I want to kind of point your attention to is that in 2020, almost 46,000 Americans have died due to suicide, and 1.2 billion others have attempted suicide in the year of 2020. Those numbers are huge. They are alarming. This is why we kind of like to open up this topic and try our best to prevent those suicide attempts and, of course, reduce these numbers if we can. So مثل ما قلنا الاكتئاب ممكن يسبب بحالات الانتحارات أو محاولة الانتحار. فكل يوم بمجتمعنا أو ببلدنا في أكثر من 3000 محاولة انتحار من قبل الشباب اللي عمرهم يتراوح بين 9 سنين و12 سنة. هالرقم كتير كبير، خصوصا إذا نحن عم نفكر بعمرهم. هالعمر كتير صغير ليحاولوا إنه ينتحروا. وبسنة 2020 توفى أكثر من 45 ألف شخص أمريكي بسبب الانتحار. وكمان بنفس هالسنة كان في أكثر من مليون محاولة انتحار بس ما نجحت. هالأرقام كتير كبيرة، فلهالسبب نحن بنحب نفتح هالموضوع ونحكي عنه ونحاول نقلل من هالأرقام اللي عم نشوفها. So what is suicide? This is death that's caused by someone injuring themselves, so they purposely do something to hurt themselves. A lot of people do attempt suicide multiple times before they actually succeed, and the rates are very different. Like we saw, the numbers were kind of huge. A lot of times we see a big number in the teen youth age, and then a bigger number in the very elderly as well, or kind of towards the end of middle age, there's another kind of burst. And again, population, where someone lives, their background, all of that varies, but we do see a lot of suicide in a lot of different communities. And then exposure to violence, social alienation, depression, things like that, things that we've been talking about can be huge risk factors to suicide. So kind of working to reduce those risk factors can go a long way here in reducing those numbers. So شو هو الانتحار؟ الانتحار هو محاولة الموت من قبل الشخص لما هو بيأذي حاله وبيحاول يموت أو ينتحر. ما كل المحاولات بتنجح، لهالسبب نحن شفنا رقم كبير للمحاولات اللي بتصير كل سنة. وفي أسباب كثيرة ممكن تخلي الشخص يلجأ للانتحار، مثل الاكتئاب أو حتى غير عوامل ممكن تكون موجودة بالمجتمع اللي حكينا عنها. فإذا حاولنا نشتغل على هالعوامل ممكن نحاول نقلل من هالرقم الكبير. So what are the warning signs? What should we look for? What are kind of the red flags when it comes to suicide, especially the warning signs? If we kind of hear a lot of talking about wanting to kill themselves, not wanting to exist anymore, looking for lethal means, like trying to figure out, what could be deadly, this could all be warning signs. Feeling trapped, kind of not being able to find any good solutions to any problems around them, being very withdrawn from family and friends could be a warning sign as well. Loss of interest in activities that they usually used to enjoy could be a huge sign. Putting their things in order, giving things away, not wanting, things that they used to love before, trying to say goodbye to people, saying things that kind of sound like they're not going to see someone before could be a huge warning sign when it comes to suicide. Engaging in self-harm obviously is a huge one. Extreme mood swings, if we see someone being very, very calm and then all of a sudden they're very happy or very sad, or any extreme fluctuations could be a huge warning sign here to look out for. And then of course, changing in eating habits and sleeping habits. Again, I know that teens usually have this and it's normal for them, but if something is very not normal, something is just not right, could be a warning sign. And it might be worth, kind of digging in and trying to see what is going on. So خلينا كمان نحكي عن علامات التحذيرية اللي ممكن ننتبه عليها إذا الشخص ممكن يكون عنده أفكار الانتحار. So إذا بيحكي عن رغبته بقتل حاله أو عم بيحاول يلاقي وسائل مختلفة لأذي حاله أو لقتل حاله، ممكن تكون علامة كتير كبيرة. الحكي عن أو الابتعاد عن الناس الموجودين حواليه، الشعور بالمحاصرة أو الابتعاد عن الناس الموجودين، الانسحاب من العائلة والرفقة ممكن تكون علامة كتير كبيرة. فقدان الاهتمام بالأنشطة اللي هن كانوا بيحبوها من قبل، هي ممكن تكون علامة كمان كتير كبيرة، خصوصا إذا هالشي منه طبيعي لأولادنا. التخلي من الأشياء اللي هن كانوا بيهتموا فيها أو بيحبوها أو أشيائهم الشخصية، أو حتى إذا بيحكوا مع الناس بطريقة إنه هن ما رح يشوفوهم مرة تانية، هي ممكن تكون علامة. أذي حالهم، تقليب المزاج اللي ممكن يكون كتير إكستريم، مثل هن يكونوا كتير هادين أو زعلانين بعدين يصيروا كتير فرحانين، هالنوع من تغير المزاج ممكن يكون علامة. وكمان تغيير عاداتهم بالأكل وبالنوم. هلأ بعرف إنه الشباب عندهم هالشي عادي، بس إذا منه عادي لأولادكم أو بتحسوا إنه في شي تاني عم بيصير، حاولوا تعرفوا شو موجود أو شو عم بيصير، لأنه ممكن تكون علامة تحذيرية لإلكم. So things that we can hear are things like, I'd rather be dead, or I'm better off dead, I'm just going to kill myself, I hate my life. I know a lot of our teens like to throw that very casually, like I hate my life, but if they're saying it with a lot of emotion, if you kind of hear it all the time, then that can be a warning sign. I won't be bothering you much longer, I won't be a burden, you would be better off without me. all of these things are kind of things that we can kind of keep an eye or an ear for. If we hear them, then they could potentially be signs, especially for kids who are serious about all of these things that they're saying. جملات ممكن نسمعها إن هي ممكن تكون أنا باكره حياتي. كتير من الولاد بيحبوا يستخدموا هالجملة، فحاولوا تنتبهوا عليها خصوصًا إذا عم بيقولوها أكتر من اللازم. إذا دايمًا عم بتحسوا إنه هنن عم بيقولوها بصدق، هاي ممكن تكون علامة لإلكن. ما رح أزعجكن أكتر من هيك، بدي أقتل حالي، أحسن لي لو ما كنت عايش، أو أي نوع من هالجمل ممكن تكون جمل تحذيرية لإلكن لتنتبهوا عليها. So really, like I said, our teens have, mood swings and their behaviors really change, and it can be really hard to kind of pay attention to those signs that I've mentioned. But it's really important to kind of figure out what's normal for your child, what's not normal, and if you feel like something is just not right, it's okay to kind of take a step and ask your questions, try to figure out what's going on, and step in when you need to. That way, you kind of, you're making sure that you're doing your part even if you were wrong at the end of the day. What matters is their safety and their health for sure. If you see any of the signs, it's really important to kind of find out a little bit more, whether it's asking your child or their friends or people around them, to kind of really see what's going on and get help if needed. So مثل ما قلنا هالعلامات التحذيرية ممكن تكون شوي صعبة لننتبه عليها خصوصًا عند الشباب، لإنه هنن بدون شي مزاجهم بيتغير والطريقة بيتصرفوا فيها بتتغير بهالعمر، بس إذا شي منه طبيعي لأولادكم وعم بتحسوا إنه في شي غلط، حاولوا تسألوهم، تستفسروا منهم أو من رفقاتهم أو من الناس اللي حواليهم لتعرفوا شو عم بيصير، وحاولوا كمان تساعدوهم تفتحوا هالموضوع، أو حتى تجيبوا لهم مساعدة من مختصين إذا كان لازم. So, what are the protective factors for suicide? I kind of talked about, what the signs to look for are, but what are some things that just existing could really help prevent someone from having those signs of suicide? One of them is very good social support, whether this is friends, whether this is family connections, or any people around us that we feel that we trust could go a long way here. Having skills to know how to solve problems, so problem solving skills are really important. They can protect people from things like suicide and attempting suicide. Access to interventions and support services are also important. Strong cultural or spiritual connections could also go a long way here. And then, of course, suicide prevention should always focus on increasing those protective factors. So, increasing the good, increasing the support, increasing the resources around us. And all of these would really help us and our teens really walk away from thoughts of suicide and depression in general. So شو هي العوامل للحماية اللي ممكن تكون موجودة حوالينا للحماية من الانتحار؟ أول وحدة منهم هو الدعم الاجتماعي، ممكن تكون رفقاتنا، ممكن تكون عائلتنا، أو أي شخص نحن بنحس إنه نحن بنوثق فيهم ممكن نحكي معهم. هالشي ممكن يكون عامل كتير منيح للحماية من الانتحار. كمان غير شي هي ممكن تكون مهارات حل المشاكل. إذا أولادنا بيعرفوا كيف يحلوا مشاكلهم، هن رح يبتعدوا عن أفكار الاكتئاب والانتحار بشكل معين. التواصل أو بيعرفوا شو هي الresources الموجودة حواليهم كمان ممكن تكون شي من الأشياء اللي ممكن يحميهم من الانتحار. روابط الموجودة بالمجتمع كمان ممكن تحميهم بشكل كبير. هالعوامل كل ما كترناهم، كل ما كترنا الدعم الاجتماعي الموجود حوالينا وحوالين أولادنا، كل ما ساعدنا لنحميهم من أفكار الاكتئاب أو الانتحار. So what can we do as parents other than work on the preventative factors is educate ourselves, get to know how we can know the warning signs, what to do if we see one of those warning signs, and just kind of really upkeeping with things to look for and just being aware in general. Talk openly with your child as well. I know that a lot of people are afraid to bring up these kind of topics because, I don't want to bring up suicide to put it in my kid's head. Actually, if we talk about it and give them the right information, they are much better off than Googling it or learning from friends and just getting the wrong information. So opening this conversation could actually be good for them, especially if you feel like they might be at risk. Encourage the school systems to kind of push for better support systems and protective factors in general. This could be programs or anything like that. Keep an eye out on your child, notice their behavioral changes, especially if they're very different from normal. Ask for help, get professional help if needed. You can also get trained on QPR, which is, a type of suicide prevention or just mental health first aid. A lot of organizations around us do provide this kind of training. One of them is Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network and CSIS as well. Both are very local. We can get trained on these things and kind of know what to say, know the questions, and really know how to help someone who is struggling with something like this. So شو ممكن نعمل كأهل؟ أول شي ممكن نعمله هو نعلم حالنا أو نعلم كيف ننتبه على العلامات التحذيرية اللي حكينا عنهم، نعرف شو نعمل إذا عم نشوف هالعلامات التحذيرية. نحكي بصراحة مع أولادنا عن هالمواضيع. كتير مننا كأهل بنخاف نفتح مواضيع مثل هي، لأنه بنفكر إذا فتحنا هالموضوع رح ندخل هالفكرة براس أولادنا، بس بالعكس إذا هن بدهم يعرفوا أكتر عن موضوع معين، الإنترنت موجود ورفقاتهم موجودة وهن ممكن يسألوهم وياخدوا معلومات منا صحيحة من عندهم. حاولوا إنه تراقبوا ولادكم، تنتبهوا على التغيرات السلوكية اللي عم يشوفوها عندهم، وكمان اعرفوا كيف أو من وين ممكن تلاقوا مساعدة إذا أولادكم عم بيشوفوا عندهم تغيرات مختلفة. كمان ممكن تروحوا تدريبات أو سيشنز مختلفة تبع QPR اللي هي الطريقة اللي ممكن تحكوا مع أولادكم أو الأسئلة الصحيحة وكيف تردوا عليها إذا في حدا عم بتشوفوا عنده أي نوع من أنواع الاكتئاب أو حتى إذا حاولوا ينتحروا. CSS و Detroit Wayne هن مؤسستين كتير موجودين حوالينا، ممكن يعملوا هالنوع من التدريب اللي أنتم ممكن تستفادوا منه. So again, parents, what should we keep an eye out for? Changes in appearance, especially downhill. So if they're not taking care of themselves anymore, that could be a huge sign. Changes in eating habits, again, if this is not normal, very quick, you're noticing that there's something wrong behind it, then that could be a sign. Changing sleep patterns and activities. I know that this is normal for teens and they just really switch up their sleep cycle, but if it's not normal, something is off, kind of point attention to it. Changes in mood and behavior. If this lasts for a long time, it's not normal, very drastic from what they usually do, that could be a sign. Decreased self-esteem, they're not feeling confident, not much self-worth, that could be a sign. A huge one is withdrawing from family and friends. And of course, problems at schools or in their sports that they like to play usually. So كأهل بدي أرجع أحكي عن شو ممكن ننتبه له. أول وحدة هي التغيير بالمزاج، وبعرف إنه المراهقين دايما بيكون عندهم هالتغيير. تغيير بالنوم كمان، خصوصا إذا شي منه عادي لإلهم أو منه طبيعي. تغيير بعاداتهم للأكل أو الوزن، خصوصا إذا هالتغير صار بطريقة كتير سريعة ومفاجئة. تغيير بسلوكهم أو حتى مظهرهم، هالشي ممكن يكون علامة. مشاكل بالمدرسة، انسحابهم من رفقاتهم أو من العائلة. وكمان إذا بتحسوا إنه ثقتهم بنفسهم بتكون كتير مختلفة أو قليلة أو سلبية، هاي كمان ممكن تكون علامة كتير كبيرة لإلكم. Another thing that I kind of just want to point out here is a few misconceptions. One of them was not to bring up the topic to our kids, to not put it in their heads. We're kind of cleared from that. Another thing is mental health is such a taboo topic in our community, especially our Muslim community. There's a lot of shame and there's a lot of fear around people who are struggling with it, and they really shy away from getting the help that they need. This is something that I feel like our community as a whole has been working on, but just kind of remind yourself that a mental illness is not different from a physical illness, and help is out there and getting it should not be shameful. Another misconception is that, if we are religious enough or we believed enough, we would not have thoughts of suicide or thoughts of depression or anything like that. So maybe just strengthening up our religion. That might be true for some people, but it's also really important to, again, remember that this is a mental illness very similar to a physical. Sometimes beliefs and religion alone might not do it, so getting professional help could also go a long way. A lot of times we can also as parents or people from this community think that our kids are just seeking attention, or they're acting out, or they want to be like their friends, and really belittle the problem that is at hand. Try not to do that. If additional help is required or you feel like it's necessary, don't shy away from it. It could really help you and your child and your family as a whole. شيء تاني بدي أحكي عنه هي أفكار ممكن تكون منا صحيحة موجودة حوالينا. أول وحدة منهم already حكيت عنها، اللي هي أفكار إنه نحن ممكن نفتح المواضيع مع أولادنا، لأنه إذا فتحناها نحن عم بندخل هالفكرة براسهم. أفكار تانية ممكن تكون موجودة بالمجتمع، إنه هالموضوع خصوصا موضوع الاكتئاب أو الانتحار أو حتى الاضطرابات العقلية ممكن تكون شيء منه منيح بمجتمعنا، ممكن يكون شيء بيجلب العار لكتير من الناس أو حتى الخوف. فنحن ما بنحكي عنه، بس تذكروا إنه هالنوع من الاضطرابات العقلية هي مثل أي مرض جسدي مختلف، بنروح عند الحكيم وبنتعالج منه. نفس الشيء هون، ما في أي عار أو ما لازم تحسوا بالخوف. إذا حدا ممكن يحتاج المساعدة خلينا نساعده. كمان في كتير من الناس بتفكر إنه إذا حدا عم بيحس بالاكتئاب أو عنده أفكار بالانتحار هو منه متدين أو ما عنده ما عم بيعرف دينه منيح أو أي نوع من هالأفكار. هالشي ممكن يكون صحيح نسبة قليلة من الناس. ممكن إذا مارسوا دينهم أكتر بيرجعوا يحسوا أحسن وبيتخلصوا من الاكتئاب، بس كتير من الأحيان مع الأسف هالشي لحاله ما بيفيد. خلينا كمان نفتح عيوننا على الأشياء الكثيرة اللي ممكن نعملها لنساعد أولادنا والناس الموجودة حوالينا اللي عم بيعانوا من هالشي. مثل ما قلنا هاي ممكن تكون مرض مثل أي مرض تاني، ممكن نتعالج منه إذا نحن بنشوف الرعاية المناسبة لنا وللشي اللي عم بنمر فيه. Again, it's just things that are kind of the conversations in our environment. Again, some people might think that mental health is, a test from God. Therefore we shouldn't get professional help. Regardless, again, like I said, yes, that might be true. It is a test, but that doesn't mean that we can't get professional help to really help us succeed in this test. In general, our community, like I keep mentioning, likes to not discuss this topic so much, but really bringing it up could help us all work together to prevent suicide in our community in general. كتير من الناس كمان بتفكر إنه الصحة النفسية أو اضطرابات الصحة النفسية ممكن تكون اختبار من الله أو من ربنا، بس بالتالي نحن ما لازم نخلي غيرنا يساعدنا فيها أو ما نروح عند الحكيم. بس بالعكس، حتى لو هو كان الاختبار مثل أي مرض تاني، هو كمان بيكون اختبار، بس إحنا بنتعالج منه وبنروح ناخد أدويتنا والعلاج المناسب. افتحوا عينكم على هالشي. كمان إحنا دايما بنخاف إنه نروح نحكي عن هالمواضيع مع ناس غيرنا، أو بنخاف إنه حدا يعرف إنه نحن عنا هالمشاكل ببيتنا أو بأسرتنا. بس ما تخلوا هالخوف يسيطر عليكم. المساعدة موجودة بكل مكان، وممكن تساعدكم وتساعد عائلتكم بطريقة كتير منيحة، وكمان ممكن نقلل هالنسبة من الانتحار اللي عم بيصير بمجتمعنا. And I'm also gonna put up the screen that has a few phone numbers, a few helplines as well. The ones on the bottom here are 24-hour helplines. All of them are anonymous. If you're feeling like you do need help, you're not sure where to go, these are the numbers to call. They'll provide you with the right resources for you. There are also teen text lines, so that they don't even have to get on the phone and talk to someone. They can just kind of text and get help that way. So على السكرين هلأ في أكثر من رقم تليفون للمساعدة. هدول الأربعة الأخيرين هن مفتوحين 24 ساعة، وما حدا رح يسأل عن أي معلومات شخصية لإلكن، بس إن رح يعرفوا شو هي المشكلة، وكمان رح يعطوكن أو ليوجهوكن للمساعدة المنيحة لإلكن الموجودة حواليكن. فممكن تتصلوا عليهم أو حتى تبعتوا مسجات على الأرقام الموجودة على الشاشة. بتمنى إذا أي حدا بيحتاج هالشي ممكن يستخدم هالأرقام الموجودة على الشاشة. And thank you so much for having me today. Thank you for listening for today's session, and I hope that you found it informative. And I will take any questions.
Thank you, Omnia. Very important presentation. Some of the signs of concern, Omnia, that you mentioned, uh, for teenagers, they're very common.
Yes.
How can you distinguish between these symptoms and basically the the natural change that a teenager goes through, isolation, moodiness, etc. Do you feel that there is, at any case, the conversation should be opened?
So what's really important is to kind of be able to know your son or daughter or the teen. Like we keep saying, all of these signs are, very normal for someone who is a teenager. But if you see that, their mood swings are not just 1 day, 2 days, it's kind of constant, it's getting worse, you're really not knowing what's going on. If it's just extreme or not normal for them, a lot of times, these kind of things we start seeing around, I don't know, age 10 or just depending on the child. But once you start noticing mood changes, you'll kind of know what their new mood is. But if there's a change to the new mood that we have kind of categorized as their teen mood, then that could be the sign for you. Um, but kind of just really something that's very far off from normal is the way to go. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with asking, "Hey, are you okay? You seem upset. Did something happen?" And maybe they'll open up and they'll tell you. Try not to be, excessive with those questions. But of course, if you see something that's just not normal, off, and then again, if they're moody and things that used to lighten up their day don't, then that is definitely a sign to kind of keep out for. But something that's extreme, something that takes a long time, and just very not normal for your child could be kind of the three ways to recognize it from just a regular teen or youth mood swing.
Thank you. And now, in terms of opening that conversation, would you fear that a teenager who would have like a negative reaction if a parent is trying to check up on their mental health? What is the safest way to approach a teenager that's showing symptoms just to make sure that they're okay?
Very, very good question. So, yes, depending on our teens, a lot of our teens probably don't like to open up conversations like this with their parents, and that's understandable. But I think the best way to kind of go around this is first try to build a better relationship with your child before opening any of these conversations. Because if we're going to open it and our child is just going to walk away from us, then really we didn't do anything, but kind of pull them into an activity that they like, or just try to better the relationship before you open up this conversation could be very helpful. So try not to make it awkward. Try to be very lighthearted when you open up these topics. And try to let them trust you, and that way, they're kind of less likely to close the conversation. Don't open it by saying, I feel like your mood has changed, or do you have suicidal thoughts? No, kind of ease into it. It could be as simple as, do you know anyone in your school that kind of seems off? They have mood changes. Anyone in your school or your friend group has talked about suicide or wanting to hurt themselves or substance use or anything like that? Don't ask them a yes or no question. Kind of ask a broad question that could open up a conversation instead of just asking a yes or no question or starting by lecturing them. Kind of allow them to speak first, allow them to get comfortable in the conversation before really directing them in one way or another.
Thank you. Can you see me now on the screen?
Yes.
It's probably a little bit dark still. Maybe if I move a little bit. Okay. Omnia, another question about this,
Sure.
important topic.
Sure.
So, as far as a teenager, like a friend, what do you recommend for a friend who's sometimes entrusted with this information, and they feel that if they tell someone about their friend, they're kind of betraying that trust? What's your message to that friend?
What I would like to say is just kind of put your situation in ahead of time. So would you rather you still being friends with this person, but they are hurt or no longer existing? Or would you rather, this person be safe, be healthy, but just not like you like they did before? And honestly, a lot of times, people that attempt suicide and are saved from it, with time, they do become very thankful that someone did save their lives. So again, you could be that person that saved their lives, and also just think about, would you rather them hurting themselves but still staying friends with you, or they could be healthy, happy, but just not friends with you anymore. I would take that over, feeling guilty for not helping them, for knowing something and not saying anything at all. And again, with time, a lot of people, almost all of them, do think that they are very thankful for being able to, live another day, for someone saving them, for someone telling the secret and finding them before they hurt themselves. So I think that's important to think about.
Okay. And a message to the parents, actually all parents really in this country, that your first line of help is social workers that are inside the school. These are an interaction with the students on daily basis. They are within the same environment. They can connect and relate to the students. Please encourage your child if they have a need, or they feel that they would like to seek some help from the social worker, that it is a very safe thing to do. It will their confidentiality is 100% protected. No one really has access to these conversations except very few individuals in administration. So it is very highly confidential, and it can be really much help for a student. I do encourage my children to that if they feel they need to talk to someone, and they would prefer to talk to someone other than their parents, to reach out to the social worker in the school and speak to them. My personal experience working in the schools, that they are great resources for our families. Other than that, there are tons of community organizations that are also understanding of the special circumstances for our community, the different stigmas that Munia has talked about, very important ones, and can maneuver these. Now, we're almost at the end of our presentation. I want to thank you again, Omnia, and thank
Thank you.
LAHC. Before we depart, I wanted to share some good news to our community. There's tons of improvements, tons of things always taking place in our schools. We cannot keep up with it. While we are doing our live right now, there's the National Honors Society induction at Universal Learning Academy. There is a staff versus seniors volleyball game at Star International Academy fundraiser. There is a career day or college day at Universal Academy. Great things are happening all the time. Star International Academy Canton just did a great walk and a big support for breast cancer research. So, but I wanted to share one specific thing. This year we have, and actually starting from last year, we've implemented ALICE as a new strategy for protecting schools from intruders, and we have done extensive trainers. We have now certified trainers among our staff, and we have done training for our staff. And this year we are rolling out training for our students. We are keeping the community very well engaged with this. First, for the sake of encouraging others and inspiring others to do the same, whether it is a school or any type of congregation, to take some sort of training. There's different kinds of training. We have chosen ALICE for ourselves. I'm going to show you a video to end with this episode about the ALICE training, and a little bit about ALICE, introducing you what is ALICE. That also took place at Star International Academy, George campus. Here you go. It's kind of ironic that we bring this video at the end of a topic that's very important and related to the core and root issues that have caused the country to move in a direction where we seek more safety for our children at schools. With that, thank you again for LAHC, Omnia, Abdullah, and we'll see you again in the next family engagement broadcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us.